Are you ready to make some spring and Easter wreaths? In today's video, I'm going to show you 4 budget-friendly wreath DIYs to decorate your home this spring. I hope you enjoy. For this project, you'll need 2 circles, one slightly larger than the other. My largest one is a wood circle that's about 10 inches. The smallest one is a mirror from Dollar Tree and it's 7.5 inches. We are going to be placing the largest one on a piece of foam board from Dollar Tree and trace that out and then cut it out with a utility knife. Then we're going to place our smallest circle right in the center of the largest one on the foam board, trace it out and cut it out with the utility knife so that you are just left with the outer ring. Then you can take some sandpaper to go around the edges to make sure they're smooth. I'll be using some nautical rope from Dollar Tree, wrapping around this, and I'm going to start on the back side by hot gluing the end piece and wrap it very tightly and very close together so that you don't see any of the foam board. When you get to the end of that roll, you'll want to leave enough space on the back side to start your second roll. And you always want to make sure that you're gluing it on the back side. Again, let your glue set up and wrap it very tightly. This is what it looks like after 2 of the 9.5 foot rolls of the nautical rope, so you'll need at least 4 of those to be able to wrap this entire piece. Grab your foam board and draw out the shape similar to a football and make a curve at the bottom. So we're going to make a bunny ear. We're going to cut this out using the utility knife, and then we can use the first one as a template to trace and cut out the second one. Once you sand all of the edges to make sure they're smooth, wipe it off from any debris and then add a layer of Mod Podge to the top of both of these foam board pieces and allow the Mod Podge to dry. I'll be covering mine with some beautiful fabric from Dollar Tree. Now it is pretty wrinkled and I need to make sure I have all of the wrinkles out before I apply it to the foam board, because we're not going to be able to use that iron on a very high setting with this foam board. So then I can trim my fabric down to a more manageable size. We're going to place that on top of the foam board, add a piece of parchment paper, and you don't want your iron to sit in one spot very long. If the iron is too high or you leave it sit in a spot too long, it will kind of bubble up that foam board. Then we're going to let that cool down, and then we can flip it over and trim any of the excess fabric off using our scissors. Using some hot glue and some more nautical rope, I am going to place this around each of the bunny ears to trim it out. You can leave it just like this, but if you do have a little bit of the edge of the fabric showing, just take some twine and hot glue that on the inside of the nautical rope, and this will give it a beautifully finished look. Once you have completed the twine wrapped on the second ear, we can attach this to our wreath form. Now, because the ears are a little bit thinner than the wreath base itself, and I want my ears to sit closer to the front, I have a piece of wood to make up that height difference, and then I can attach my ears to the wreath form using some hot glue, and then while the glue cools off, the ears can rest on my piece of wood. I didn't like that the ears are a little bit floppy, so to reinforce that, I'm going to take some additional nautical rope and glue that on the back side of the ears, and then wrap it around towards the front in between the ear, and then around towards the front on the other one. Before I finished decorating the front of it, I did take a piece of twine and just tie a knot at the end so I could create a hanger on the back side, gluing that right in between the ears and you won't even be able to see it. To make a bow for the front, I'm using some deco mesh as well as some burlap with lace ribbon and some blue shimmery ribbon, all three of which came from Dollar Tree. I'm also going to use a piece of twine to be able to attach all of them together. Starting with the widest ribbon, I'm going to leave a tail, make a loop like this, then make the same size loop on the opposite side, holding it together right in the middle, create another loop on each side, and leave a tail the same length as I did originally started with. So it's going to look like this with 2 loops at the top, 2 loops at the bottom. Pinch it together in the middle where all of the pieces are overlapping, and then pull both of your tails downward, and then use a clamp to hold it together because we're going to make a similar bow just like that but smaller with that burlap lace ribbon. When leaving the tail and creating the loop, just hold it up to your bigger ribbon to make sure that the loops are smaller so that you'll still be able to see the blue ribbon. Once you have that together, pinch together in the middle and pull your tails down, you can then remove that clamp and attach these 2 pieces together using that piece of twine. You just want to make sure that you tie it very tightly directly in the center and tie a knot on the back side. Then I'm going to cut a piece of that deco mesh to attach to the front of the burlap bow. And I'm just going to wrap that around and double knot the twine on the back side. And then once I cut my excess twine off, it is time to separate your loops, pull your tails forward, and really fluff out your bow. Using hot glue, I'm going to attach this to the wreath form right below the ears off to one side, and then I can dovetail all of the tails of the bow just by folding that in half and cutting it at an angle. I'll do that for all 4 tails. I'll make sure I go back and fluff out my bow again, separating my loops, and for some added cuteness, I'm taking one of these Dollar Tree wooden bunnies, giving it a coat of antique wax, and once that dries, I'm going to attach that right in the center of the bow using some hot glue. The inspiration for this wreath is a pale yellow bucket that you can find at Dollar Tree in their party section. Once I remove that label, I am going to go to the side of the bucket and drill 2 holes. You want to be super careful because this will produce some metal shards. You want the holes to be big enough to fit a zip tie through, and if you're using short zip ties like I am, you'll need 2 to attach them together to make one long one. Grab one of the wooden birdhouses from Dollar Tree, and I am going to paint mine a yellow color, trying to match it as close as possible to the bucket. Now once my paint dried, it was a little bit darker than I wanted it to be, so I did add in some white paint and give it a second coat to lighten it up a bit. And once that dried, I think it matches pretty close. Then you're going to take that same size drill bit and drill 2 holes in the bottom of the birdhouse, making sure you kind of stay in the center of it. Then we're going to take a zip tie, bend it over to create like a curve. And this part is a little tricky, but with a little bit of effort, once you push that through and you have your finger through the inside of the birdhouse, you could kind of push it down to where it comes through the other hole. Again, because I'm using small zip ties, I am going to attach 2 together to make one long one. I'm using a 14-inch grapevine wreath that you can find at Hobby Lobby for around $5. I'm also using some boxwood greenery from Walmart. I'm going to place the first bundle by bending it to shape the wreath form and then tucking that down into the grapevine wreath. I'll do the second bundle the same way, making sure that the top bundle overlaps the second one. To hold those in place, I am going to take some floral wire to wrap that around the stems and the grapevine wreath. Now I will leave that top one open because I will be adding some more greenery up there. But for the first one and second one, you want to place your floral wire underneath the stem of the boxwood greenery, and then take the longest stem that's on the bottom from the previous bundle and then attach that using the floral wire, and continue to do that with the next bundle. And I always like to clip my floral wire and then tuck it down to make sure it doesn't scratch anything. Then I decided to add a fourth bundle at the bottom so that this would cover up at least the left-hand side of the wreath, and again attach that with the floral wire. At the top, I'll take a fifth bundle and bend that over so that it's going in the opposite direction, and leave that space there open where you just cut your floral wire. Using some hanging greenery from Dollar Tree, I'm going to cut these from the bundle itself and tuck that in, attaching those using that same method with the floral wire, and make sure you get the top pieces so that they don't flop forward when you hang your wreath up. So I am going to add 2 more additional pieces on that side. And now we can take our bucket with the zip ties, and we're going to attach that in that space at the very top, wrapping it around the grapevine wreath and pulling it very tightly, and then cutting your excess zip tie off. You will be able to see the zip tie from the front, so just take an extra stem of greenery and tuck that in and secure it in place with some floral wire. You'll need a piece of floral foam that will fit inside of the bucket, and to hold that in place, I'm going to use some hot glue on the bottom and the sides. And then you could take your birdhouse, wrap that around at the bottom, making sure that it is directly below the pail, but you want to go in between the grapevine wreath and not all the way around it, because you don't want to see the zip tie at the very bottom. Add in one of the bottom pieces of that boxwood greenery before you pull the zip tie very tightly. Then you can bend the top pieces over and use floral wire to hold that in place. Using some Easter egg garland from Dollar Tree, you will need 2 of these. Remove each of the eggs from the twine, and then hot glue the eggs starting at the floral foam. You want them to look like they are spilling out of the bucket, so you want to kind of get that as full as you can at the top. And then you can turn it around to the side and start adding your eggs using hot glue, gluing it to the boxwood greenery, kind of staggering it as you go, some towards the inside and some towards the outside, until you get down to the birdhouse. I did extend a few eggs below the birdhouse and then past the birdhouse, and then you can kind of twist the greenery around to help blend them in. And then I decided I really wanted it to be full up towards the top to make sure that it looked like the bucket was just completely full and the eggs were spilling out. I will be using some yellow flowers and some daisies. Both of these came from Hobby Lobby, but if you want to do flowers from Dollar Tree, these wildflowers are a beautiful yellow, and you can always find white flowers at Dollar Tree, but these came from Dollar General. First thing I'm going to do is cut the stems from the bundles, and I'm also using a wicker wreath. This one's old. It came from Dollar Tree. I've had it for a long time, and I just keep reusing it. If you can't find them at Dollar Tree, I think you can find them at Walmart online, or you could use a small grapevine wreath for this project, or even a wired wreath form. You would just need to wrap it with some ribbon. I'm going to start by taking the yellow stems and bending them to form the shape of the wreath form. I'm going to take one single stem and place the bottom of that into the wreath form, and then you can attach the top part using some floral wire. Just make sure that once you cut your excess floral wire off that you tuck it down so it doesn't scratch anything. Then I'll take another yellow stem and go in the opposite direction. So I'll put the bottom of the stem down where the top of the flowers were on the first one and attach it the same way. Then I'm going to cut some shorter pieces off of the yellow stem just so that I can fill in right there at the top as well as at the bottom. Again, just attaching them with the floral wire. Then I can cut those yellow daisies down and add in individual ones. Now you can add this in with hot glue. Just add as many as you like to fill that in. And this is how it's looking so far. I have some yellow plaid ribbon that I think will match perfectly with this. So I'm just going to make a very simple bow with 2 long tails, and then I'm going to dovetail each end of the bow. Then using some hot glue, I can attach this up towards the top and off to the right just a little bit. I absolutely love dogwood flowers. And when I found this 6-foot long garland at Hobby Lobby, which was originally $12.99, but with their 40% off sale, it is $7.80. And I thought this would make the most beautiful Easter wreath. It is so full of flowers. I'm using a grapevine wreath that I've had for many years. I just keep reusing it. This one measures about 18 inches and you can find those at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to take the end of the garland and feed it through the center of the grapevine wreath, and then on the back side I'll take a piece of floral wire to attach that in place. And then I could take the ends of that floral wire after I twist it a couple of times to grab a hold of that loop for the end of the garland and twist that really tight, cut my excess floral wire off, and I always like to make sure I tuck it in so it doesn't scratch anything. There are so many flowers, and because this is 6 foot long, this is going to make a beautifully full wreath. I'm going to go ahead and cut quite a few pieces of floral wire off so I can have that handy, and I'm going to use that to attach the garland to the grapevine wreath. I am only going to do half of it to begin with, because then I can go back to where I started and take the other end of the garland to attach in that area on the back side of the wreath, just like I did at the beginning. And the reason I'm doing that is because I did not want to cut the garland. I may want to reuse it in the future, and I wanted it to be one whole piece. So I'm going to start at the opposite end and work my way back to where I left off. If I see that the garland's going to be too long, I can take some of those pieces and kind of fold them over. Take the folded pieces and use that to attach to the grapevine wreath with my floral wire, and continue to do that until I have completely covered the wreath. I hope you enjoyed today's projects, and if you have a favorite, let me know in the comments section down below, because I always love to know which one is your favorite. If you haven't subscribed already, I would love for you to click that subscribe button right below the video. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Please take care, and I'll see you guys next time.